Hello, hello world. Hope you can see me and hope you can see us. Hi, it's Tomek from Q Workshop, and today it's like middle of night in Poland, but I had a good occasion to not to go to bed because I have a great pleasure to host very, very awesome guest today. A man of many talents, author of RPG scenarios, especially Call of Cthulhu, author of many, many numerous books, numerous manuals, related mostly to Call of Cthulhu. He also worked with Call of Cthulhu video games, owner of Campaign Coins company, and we will talk about it all. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Morrison today with us.
Good morning, good evening, good
Hopefully, guys,
afternoon.
hopefully you can hear us because talk about it all. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Morrison today with us. Hello, hello, hello.
Good. All right, we are testing.
Yeah, all right. So, please let us know if you can hear us and if you can see us, basically, because that's the most important question. And I am here today alone, and there is no one to help me around. So, guys, please, take
Oh,
that under
poor
consideration.
Tomek.
And
So you'd never want to be alone during Call of Cthulhu. That's a bad situation to
yes,
be in.
that's true. That's true. Mark, so just to start, because actually, like normally normally during the interview, I would ask you, to tell something about yourself, but actually, I did it already for you. So, so maybe we should start with something totally different.
Yay.
Maybe let's start with in general RPGs, because that's the question
Hmm.
I always wanted to ask you, and that's something that I am interested in. And you've been around for a while. I don't want to point out your
I
age
like to I
or,
like to think of myself
or
as a
anything.
mediocre old one. Yeah.
So what do you think, like how did the industry change during that time? What do you think about it in general?
It's very different. So I'm old. So I was part of the first high school wave for Dungeons and Dragons, back when people thought it was satanic. Surprise! It is. Ha ha! Spoilers! It was all a plot. So that was kind of in the 80s, and it was very much something that spread through kind of high school and counterculture,
Mm-hmm.
university.
Mm-hmm.
But it was this kind of weird and unknown thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, you didn't really get teased about it because nobody kind of knew what it was. You just got teased anyway because people tease people like us back in the day. So, but you would find in high school, people always find their people.
Yeah,
The,
exactly.
whether it's anime or manga
Mm-hmm.
or video games, whatever you're into, you'll find your tribe, hopefully. And now we have the internet, and our tribe is global. And I'm talking to you in Poland, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very much word of mouth specialist magazines, and you had to find out about
Mm-hmm.
it. And in a way, I miss finding out about things. Like, what's that? Oh, how can I learn about it? Now you just go
Yeah,
Google
exactly.
role playing game,
Mm-hmm.
satanic, how to summon
Mm-hmm.
devil. It's very easy. So a huge change. But what I love is that role playing has persisted since 1974. I love that Gygax and
Mm-hmm.
Arneson accidentally, to my mind, accidentally created the most amazing form of storytelling. They just wanted to make a war game where you had one soldier, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
one fighting man. He was a fighting man in 1974. Like it was none of your inclusivity back then. Fighting men. But they just thought, what if you had a war game instead of an army? You had one
Mm-hmm.
soldier, and all of a sudden their players said, "Oh, I'm going to give my guy or my girl a personality." And that's what we loved. Oh, we're in the story now. And so it took off. So that idea has never
Mm-hmm.
gone away. It's gone through peaks and troughs.
Right.
It would kind of, TSR nearly bankrupted themselves. And I find there's always been a seminal event which has picked the hobby back up again. And I think in the 90s was a seminal moment. Obviously, Chaosium, my favorite company, when they arrived, they said, well, this is a great idea, but this is still too much of a war game. There's not enough story here. So we have RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu. And then White Dwarf, and it's a very much acknowledged debt. Stuart Wyke always used to say that Chaosium was the inspiration for them. They came along and did Vampire, which is all about the personality and emotion. And I saw Vampire bring in a whole new wave of players. And then things go along, things got quiet. Then Magic the Gathering comes along and makes game stores a shit ton of money.
Right.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you. Keep the game stores open. And we had Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, which cleaned the rules up. And now, with internet and streaming and Matt Mercer and Critical Role, we have a massive influx. Because it used to be like, D&D, what's that? How do I play? It makes no sense. Now you can watch really entertaining people play. And we have this huge global audience. It's amazing. So there you are, my history of role-playing games. You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. In like a very condensed states. Yeah. But it was, interesting. Do you remember your first RPG session? Were you like GM or like a player, or what were you like afraid or terrified or interested in what's happening, intrigued?
This is really interesting because when you're a kid and you're into something, you kind of dive into it and you really want to share that with your friends, you want to make it happen. My first game was Traveller, the science fiction role-playing game. And Traveller is, the idea with Traveller as a science fiction game is a lot of the story you bring to it, and the rules are very much like straight rules. So there's no jokes in Traveller except for the fact that scouts can die during character generation. So your character can die before you start playing. You have to start again, which is hilarious. So people would play scouts just for the thrill. My school librarian, Miss Jones, got a role-playing game for the school library. Maybe I never would have played if it hadn't been for a librarian. Right. So love teachers, love librarians, love schools. And we just gave it a crack. And I remember running a game in the library and getting teased by older kids. Look at those guys. Like, but that was, I don't really remember much of that. But when we got Dungeons and Dragons, I do remember that game very clearly because my bloody friend Malcolm bugged us. He had a secret tape recorder and he taped the whole thing. And you can hear my voice. I sound like this. And everyone is making fun of me. And I said, deadpan, you'll all be destroyed if you don't listen to this. And it's true. I killed 4 out of 6 of them. They were destroyed. They didn't listen and they were destroyed. And yet, we all loved it, and we played again like that next weekend. And we used to play till dawn. And it's once again, it's because the idea of these games is so amazing. You just really want to get into it, find out what happens next. So yeah, I remember my second game.
Yeah, got you. That's really cool. But I'm guessing it wasn't all the same every time, like the same game. When did the Call of Cthulhu madness start?
My wonderful friend Mark Holsworth got RuneQuest, and he immediately could see that RuneQuest was a far superior game than Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and it still is. It's just a great percentile rule system, which was really easy to understand. You never had to look up a table. Like this is AD&D. You had to have THAC0 to hit armor class 0. So you had to do maths in 4 dimensions to work out whether you'd stabbed a goblin. So RuneQuest was really logical. And it had this amazing Bronze Age world. And there's a really great new edition of RuneQuest out. So it's with a great new starter set. Perfect time to check out RuneQuest. It's still thrilling. Yep. It's like no world or system known. So I was huge into RuneQuest. And I remember soul searching one night at university. Like, oh my God, I need to play RuneQuest because it's so much better. Oh, but everybody's playing D&D. I will have no friends. But RuneQuest is so much better. And surprise, I started playing RuneQuest and my friends loved it. And so when we started to see ads for Call of Cthulhu in magazines, because we read magazines, in those days because,
Right.
it was
Some
the
people still
steampunk
do.
era and we used to have old hats and bicycles. Some people still do.
No.
Um, Love to my print brothers, sisters, and non-binary friends. Yeah, you saw ads for Call of Cthulhu. And I remember this ad in White Dwarf which said, even librarians get bitten by the formless spawn of Saphogua. And I thought, what the hell is that? And then the book started appearing in
Hmm.
game stores with this weird font, these amazing Tom Sullivan covers
Hmm.
and shadows of Yog Sothoth. I think the thrill of Call of Cthulhu is you couldn't pronounce it. Like, and talk about satanic panic. I want to play the game with weird names I can't pronounce. So I
Yeah,
remember taking a
that was
long
my
train.
next question.
Yeah,
Where is
no,
the
exactly.
pronunciation guide?
Well, technically, Cthulhu can't be said with the human larynx. I think Lovecraft said it was whistled like
Hmm.
Kulu or something like that.
Hmm.
And I really like the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society radio plays. They do these amazing things called dark radio theatre, where they perform the Lovecraft stories like old-timey radio serials. And they do a really good job of
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they really spit out some
Hmm.
pronunciation. So listen to those guys and girls if you want to hear
Right.
some strange pronunciation. But yeah,
Right.
so that was RuneQuest to Cthulhu,
Hmm.
and Cthulhu. When you played that for the first time, and I remember my first game of that very clearly. Um, it is just a haunted house ghost story. It is pure story.
Hmm.
There's never a point where you go, I walk behind the goblin and I stab him in the
Right.
back, and what are we going to do? It's like you're in a dark room. What's
Hmm.
going to
Hmm.
happen? And it's addictive. I'm
Hmm.
still playing it 40 years later.
Yeah, yeah. I had the pleasure to watch one of your sessions in Poland. We will talk about it later, but it was great to look at. Even if at the time I wasn't a great specialist of of Call of Cthulhu, but thinking of that, I have another question. What do you think? What are the essential qualities or characteristics that a good GM should have? Because I think you might have some good advice here.
Well, first of all, I want to say something, and this is something I was thinking about when we were talking earlier about Traveller.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just had this weird little box of 3 books, and Traveller has an amazing cover. It says, Mayday, Mayday, this is Free Trader Werewolf calling. Is anybody out there? Help. And you go, oh my God, I need to save these
Mm-hmm.
people. Um, but I just thought, I want to play this game. So I read the book and I ran the game. I didn't think for a second how to do it. I just had a go. So I think the most important quality is to be
Mm-hmm.
fearless, to not second guess yourself, not doubt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have friends. Your friends like you. Your friends want to hang out with you. And your friends are also really lazy and they don't want to run the game. They just want to be a character and ruin your life, like by doing stupid shit. So the first up is to be fearless and to do
Mm-hmm.
it anyway, right?
Right.
Um, so as long as you can get over that, you can evolve your own style.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have some specific advice, but confidence is pretty good. Like it's, just knowing that people want to hear your
Mm-hmm.
story and telling it. Um, Getting the vibe of the table and finding out what your friends are interested in, how they want to play. Because if you're playing together, um, if the style is very different, if you're trying to run pure horror and they're trying to run mad comedy
Mm-hmm.
all the time, you can either go with it and
Right.
play
Right.
Evil Dead 2, which is awesome, right? Or you can say, all right, it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
stop the game and say, oh, this is a bit of a spooky game. It's great to make some laughs, but um, it. I think games are. What I find these days is that we're all so used to commenting about media and
Mm-hmm.
being everybody's a bloody critic and it shits me up the wall. Nobody watches stories. They go, well, I don't know about this plot hole. And sometimes when players play, it's almost like they're not in their character. They're like sitting behind their character's shoulder, making a comment on what their character would do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit of a reflex of being nervous about being a
Yeah.
character. I think the game is always more fun if you're in the story we're playing, in the moment we're playing, rather than commenting
Mm-hmm.
on what might be. And that's a hard thing to learn. But it is a nervous reflex. I'm going a
Yeah,
deep
but
dive here. This is making no sense.
one more question, because that's what's interesting me as well. Does it go as far as your players not knowing anything about their characters, or like not knowing their backgrounds and anything? They just, they know what they are, but not know anything else. Does it go as far as that in your sessions or not?
Well, um, so to
Like there is
GM
no
world, you want to
side
be clear.
talking and like, now I am not a character,
Oh, look,
I'm no.
some people like that
Mm-hmm.
immersion, but we need to break the tension, and we're actually here to enjoy each other's
Mm-hmm.
company. So it's like, shh, shh, don't talk about
Mm-hmm.
that. Like we're in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
character. But it's more
No
that
terror.
when the game's on, well, yeah, exactly. When the game's on, we really are in
All
that
right.
moment. Um, but I think in terms of what's for good for game mastering is making sure your players know enough of the rules to
Mm-hmm.
be able to play
Mm-hmm.
comfortably. They're not worried about the funny shaped dice, like they understand. And because we want moments of tension and
Mm-hmm.
drama, and you don't want to be saying, "What do you do now?" if a person really doesn't know how to play or how the dice work. So you
True.
want to, for the first combat, you almost want to stop and say, "Okay, this is how it goes." A little bit of a tutorial so everybody's comfortable. And as far as their character works, people love it when they find out more about their character, and also you have some parts of the game that are about their character. Like I write a lot of books and it's a
Mm-hmm.
story, but people really play for the story of their character. So we can discover along the way, oh, what did you do in the Great War? What was
Mm-hmm.
when was the first time you were afraid? When was the first time you had to kill in
Right, right, right.
self-defense? And that's a question you hadn't had to think about with your
Mm-hmm.
character. And you go, oh, I remember the look in his eyes in the trenches. And suddenly we're telling a story together. So asking people about their characters and putting that into the story, then like any media, you've made it about them. And now we really
Mm-hmm.
love it. So I could talk
Yeah,
for
yeah.
hours about this. It's a fascinating
I know.
subject. And that's why I've been playing for 40 years.
Gu-
Like, but just have fun, roll
Guys, when
dice, have laughs.
one short story on the side, when I sent Mark like like some list of questions that I might ask today, he said, "Oh, I can't wait for our 6 hours interview." So
Strap yourselves in, folks. Get another coffee.
there was really a lot, but no, guys, it's not gonna take so much time. But when we are talking, you're talking about the characters and everything. Do you remember any specific your favorite character you ever created, or you don't, or you're mostly the GM, so there is no character you know.
Yeah, I'm mostly the GM. But I do. I mean, I love to play when I get the chance.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're playing Acquisitions Incorporated, Dungeons and Dragons. So Acquisitions Inc. is a really funny D&D setting
Mm-hmm.
by the folks at Penny Arcade. And the shtick is they've been doing a lot of live shows, and now you can buy a book of it. The shtick is it's like, what if D&D was like an episode of The Office?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like franchise D&D, and it's a really funny setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm playing this like little gnome called Boris. He's a wizard, and he's kind of like, what if an accountant was a wizard? And he's always like very worried about the implications and the legal situations and the finances and are we sure? And that's it's he's really fun to play because he's so against type. So yeah, but mostly NPCs, and I
Mm-hmm.
have great fun with NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite recent NPC is in the scenario I wrote for Call of Cthulhu in Polish for Sef Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a person who's utterly lost their mind due to pure horror, and they're in a barn. And I love playing that character because I just freak people out. And I love to freak people out when playing Call of Cthulhu. As long as, and we always have to say this when talking about horror, is make sure that we're having a fun time together and you're not really pushing people's buttons. You
Right,
want
right,
to
right, right.
know your players and just say, hey, is there any places we don't go to in our horror? And if they say, look, I'm really not comfortable with this kind of story, you go, okay, great, I'll just delete
Yeah,
that
yeah,
part.
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I love playing NPCs. Yeah.
Right, right. Basically, you've took part in many scenarios, in creating, writing many scenarios. Can you remind us which Mostly there are Call of Cthulhu, but which ones? And which is your
Well,
favorite? Like, which is the one you're the most proud of? Is it like your all favorite children, or there's one like as always? Is this like I love them all, but
yeah, you really do, because you write them at different times in your life, and you're finding out about yourself and trying to entertain people.
right?
But I dig them all. I like the probably the one I'm just most proud of, I guess, is because it's in, I don't know if you see that, the Call of Cthulhu starter set. So I have
Yeah.
a scenario in that, and that is a scenario that I wrote for Lynn Willis in 1990 because the Call of Cthulhu Keeper screen was coming out, and he wanted to put a scenario in it. And I kind of felt that I wanted to write a scenario which was really could only happen in the 1920s. And when I play Call of Cthulhu, what I like to do is put on 1920s jazz music, so Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton and all this kind of swing and jazz in the happy sections when they're getting around town to show, hey, it's the Roaring Twenties. And the minute they go to the Graveyard, it's dark terror and Lustmord music. So I got really interested in the story of the jazz musicians because a lot of them are African Americans, existing under this terrible segregation where they could play music, but they couldn't, be in the venues that they were playing in. And so I wanted to write a story about that. And so that's scenarios called The Dead Man's Stomp. And I was really pleased with the way it turned out. It was great working with Lynn because he really filled out the background for what it was like to be African American at that time, because it's not something I, as a little kind of pasty Australian, had thought deeply enough about. So that turned out really well. But my favorite story about that, and it's a long story, is that then inspired a wonderful writer called Kiss Spivey, because he found that scenario, and as an African American, he thought, wow, this actually speaks to me. And recently he published an amazing book called Harlem Unbound, which is all about the African American experience in Call of Cthulhu and playing African American characters. The scenarios are incredible. And it's almost like you just discovered you've only been playing 50% of 1920s America. There's this whole other experience that you've, in your worldview, you haven't looked into. I think it's a remarkable book. So that my scenario inspired Chris, and then he helped out with some of the Harlem sections. Mike Mason did a great new editorial. So that is a scenario I think has had real impact. I'm really delighted with that one. Plus, it's kind of fun.
Kind of.
Yeah, some mad shit happens. It's quite good.
All right. You've also worked on the video game, right? On the Call of Cthulhu
Yes,
video
indeed,
game.
yes.
How is that different?
Yeah.
What's the experience like? How is that different than
So-
sitting and writing a script or a scenario for the book?
Well, I actually have been working in video games since '94, and that's a job I got because I'd published role-playing game scenarios. So that was Beam Software. They were looking for a new writer and someone who could think about non-linear plots, because that's running a role-playing game is amazing training for writing for video games, because it unlocks your brain to think anything can happen at any moment. So that's a huge recommendation to anybody who wants to get into video games. Run some role-playing games because it makes you think on your feet. It's a really good creative exercise. So I had already done a bunch of video game stuff. So when Call of Cthulhu were looking for a writer, it was Cyanide Studio, wonderful people in France. Chaosium were kind enough to recommend me. Oh, well, Mark has written for Call of Cthulhu and video games. He can help. So I helped with the storyline. The big difference is that when you and I play Call of Cthulhu, I can make up mad shit and you can say, I want to go to the records office, and I'll invent one, and it'll have a creepy leaking basement and a clerk who says, you don't want to stay down here too long. It gets damp, and I've just made that guy up right now, this second. I never thought of that before.
Right.
But when we write for a video game, somebody is going to have to animate that clock, and some special effects person is going to have to add the condensation or reflection maps of the water dripping and the audio. So we have to plan everything. So I planned that game with index cards on my dining room table, that every card was a location, and I knew how many locations I could have. There would be some locations you'd visit a lot, and there'd be some you'd only go to once. and you plotted it more like a choose your own adventure novel where people would keep coming back to that same set of finite locations. And you plotted a mystery about going to those places and back again. And also tried to plot a mystery which had some twists and turns so that what you thought at the start is not what it turns out at the end. So it's same kind of thinking, like what's some mad ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Cyanide were wonderful to work with, and they asked me for 4 plots.
Right.
And so I actually wrote 4 completely different mystery stories,
Mm-hmm.
and Penny helped me as well, just as 2-page ideas. And the team loved them all, and they voted on the weirdest one, so that was scary. And then we went to the publisher, and the publisher sort of said, "What's all this shit? Fucking where's Cthulhu?" Because I was doing like a deep dive into kind of the weirdest
Right.
stuff, and they said,
Too deep?
This is our first game. Can we rein it in a little?"
Uh-huh.
And that was unbelievably good advice. It was so smart. It was
Right.
like, so it can be bad to know too much. So I said, okay, how about this? And came up with a what I thought was still a great plot, which took ideas that Cyanide had before I arrived. So it was like, oh, actually, you guys are on the right track the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an idiot. So I'm just going to take your ideas and put a few spins on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we arrived at people have really enjoyed the
Oh,
story of
I've
the Call of
enjoyed
Cthulhu
it too.
game.
Played that.
Yeah.
Really good game.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's why I've asked, because that's really interesting stuff. One last question about Call of Cthulhu, because obviously you are very, keen of Call of Cthulhu and related to Call of Cthulhu in many ways. Um, are you mad, or is it worrying you that Call of Cthulhu is used in many different ways, or games that are not very serious and people are making fun of it? There is Call of Cthulhu Munchkin, or I don't know, many different ways to make fun of Call of Cthulhu, which is basically not so funny. It's rather scary. And is it something that bothers you, or you don't care?
It bothered me at first when I saw the
Okay.
first Call of Cthulhu plushie, because
My
when you
son just
take
got
something
one.
that's yeah, there you go, yeah. But when you take something that is scary, and Cthulhu has arrived from the deepest dripping basement of
Hmm.
Lovecraft's subconscious, and it says a lot of things about Lovecraft. And oh my God, let's not get started on Lovecraft
Right.
and his kind of racism and kind of his issues.
Hmm.
But it is still this kind of primal and terrifying force, and the story has great power. And so I hated seeing this plush Cthulhu, and I actually decapitated it in front of 200 people at a Warhammer 40K tournament they're running. We cut its head off and stuck it in a hole. Um, but ultimately, we make fun of things that are scare us. It's like when we laugh at horror or we laugh at terrible
Hmm.
things, because we have to let the tension out. We have
Right.
to let it go. Otherwise, it bottles up. And now that goes to an extreme. It really bothers me in modern society. I find it appalling the way people have lols at the most awful human tragedy.
Hmm.
Like people make fun of it. It's like, fucking rein it
Hmm.
in,
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's a really dark and deep kind of spectrum. But Cthulhu doesn't care.
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
sit down with my friends with the candlelight and like, I'm serious about the game, and it's the basement's dripping. And as you come down the stairs, each one of them creaks. And you think to yourself, these stairs have an open back. And if there's something under the stairs, it could just grab my ankle right
Hmm.
now. Do you want to go down the stairs? Like,
Right.
and in that moment when I'm telling you a spooky story, then Munchkin Cthulhu, which is a hilarious
Hmm.
game, and it's got John Kovalic artwork, it's great. I can now flip between, okay, this is comedy Cthulhu mode, and this is horror
Right.
Cthulhu mode. When I read Lovecraft, it's horror. But I will make a Cthulhu joke quicker than anyone, like,
Right.
because it's funny shit. It's ridiculous.
All right. That was, I was,
But
I
I'll
was
tell you another
curious.
thing, though. And again, this is the thing about being old. In the 80s, people honestly, like, is the Necronomicon real?
Hmm.
Like, is Cthulhu
Hmm.
real?
Hmm.
There was like the Necronomicon was published in paperback
Hmm.
by an occultist called Simon. So if you want a badass occultist name, Simon. The Necronomicon by Simon.
Sounds
Ooh,
scary,
scary.
spooky.
Like people really did get suckered in,
Mm-hmm.
So there's still a power.
All right. Okay, let's leave the past and talk a bit about nowadays, because you've actually you one of your ideas for life, I guess, is running campaign coins. It's actually the point where
Hmm.
our paths crossed one day, and it's for all of you that you don't know what is it. It's a company that makes coins for RPG games mostly. Yeah. Um
Yes, RPGs, board games,
yeah,
just props,
exactly.
cool
Yeah,
things.
chips like metal round items,
Yeah, yeah.
and basically, did it come out of a need? You said, "Hey, I would love to have a
Oh yeah.
pouch of coins, and I don't. So let's make a company that makes those." Is this the story,
That's
or was it a different
that
one?
is 100% correct.
Mm,
But it wasn't me. I didn't create campaign coins. My brilliant
mm-hmm,
friend Andre Bishop did, and Andre's he's the
mm-hmm,
founder and principal owner of Campaign Coins. Andre and I are huge friends. We really bonded in at Gen Con
mm-hmm.
1991 because he was just a guy I knew from Melbourne role
Right.
playing, and I was at Gen Con and Andre walked past. I was like, Andre, what are you doing here? He says, oh yeah, I've come to Gen Con to check it out, and I'm staying in a room with 6 people. And I said, well, that's too many people. Come and stay in my room. I'm by myself. So so he started hanging out with Calcium. And he actually has written a Call of Cthulhu scenario too, called This Fire Shall
Mm-hmm.
Kill. So he's also a Call of Cthulhu author from back in the day.
Right.
But Andre's first and major love is Dungeons and
Mm-hmm.
Dragons. And his friend Hugh, our friend Hugh, came back from South America and playing D&D threw South American coins on the table so they could actually play with coins in the
Mm-hmm.
game when you get treasure. Because writing it down with pencil is like, normal,
Mm-hmm.
but suddenly you've got money. It's like immersive and fun. And Andre went, that is a great idea, but I want fantasy coins. I want like Lord of the Rings style coins. So he went to buy some, and nobody was making any. Andre is an entrepreneur. He's run multiple restaurants and venues. And so he went, well, if no one's making any, I'll make some. And that way I can fly to Gen Con every year and get it as a tax break. So that is why our company exists, so that Andre can go to Gen Con. Like, good work. But also because he thought it would be really cool to have coins, like actual treasure. And so he invented the product. He designed it with an Australian artist called Lee Smith
Mm-hmm.
and launched it Gen Con 2008. And everyone went, wow, why didn't we think of this? This is so cool. And then I got involved because our video game studio closed. I had a lot of time in my hands and I
All
wanted
right.
to keep playing D&D with my video
All
game
right.
studio friends. And they were bankrupting my coin economy. So I said to Andre, I need more coins. And Andre went, oh, the coins. Gee, I wish I had more time to do things with them. And I said, I have so much time, Andre. How can I help? And
And this
so
is
that
how
was
it's
2011.
right.
Yeah, that was my involvement.
Right.
And you and I made a coin together. There it
Yes,
is.
we did.
Whoa,
It's
the
super
Witcher
beautiful. It's the Witcher
coin.
coin from our Witcher
Yeah,
hybrid dice campaign, Kickstarter campaign. It's
yeah.
substantial.
And those dice are just on sale now, aren't they?
Yeah.
You've just released them. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
So
Yeah, it was really exciting for us to. I'm a huge. It's a
it
amazing
is.
game,
It
Witcher
is.
3.
It
It
is.
was such a thrill to make this with you. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe
Pleasure
like
is
dream come
our.
true stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically,
Eds.
it's so funny that you were telling this story and then clarifying everything, because like our stories are similar to some extent, I guess, because Patrick, who found Q Workshop, he basically made the first dice set for his friend, so they have something to play with, right? so so
That
basically
is
so
great.
basically the stories are really similar here, and
Well, I heard one of my favorite stories from I think the director of PeerCon because I was had the great fortune to come to PeerCon in
mhm.
2018 as a guest, and he said in high school they used to play Cyberpunk in the 80s, but the Iron Curtain was still
Yes.
there, and they played with photocopies because they had to smuggle them in, and they used to play in a boiler room. That is so cyberpunk, like with a smuggled copy
Yeah,
behind the Iron
exactly.
Curtain boiler room.
Exactly.
Like that is fucking mad respect. Sorry, I swore. Maybe I shouldn't have, but mad respect.
Okay.
You Poles go hard. I'm respect. That's great.
Right. If you met when you're mentioning Pyrkon, how did you like it? Like, what was
I,
the impression?
I
Because
I
we
thought it
talked
was
about Pyrkon here on the
absolutely,
channel.
absolutely incredible. So PureCon is held in Poznan, which is where you are right now. Tremendous kind of Polish city. And you got the oldest university in Poland, right? Um,
Mm,
so PureCon, and of course it's Potato Con because you're
Potato
famous for
con.
potatoes
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yay, everyone loves
Yeah.
chips. I can get behind that. It was just incredible. It was like a convention as a festival of
Hmm.
creativity and like just so young and just the energy. And I think it's the energy of Poland. Like you guys have come out of this kind of dark. No, I'm going to make shit up, and you can tell me you're full of shit, Mark. Let the Polish guy talk. But you've come out of this kind of dark 50 years, and then like bang, you're just going for it. The tremendous creativity and love of the Polish people like that we see in your dice, we see in The Witcher, we see in these
Hmm.
things that have taken the world by storm. I love that you gave a copy of The Witcher to Barack
Yes.
Obama. Like I'm sure he's been grinding away playing his copy of that.
He's like,
Fucking
what?
loves it. Yeah, exactly. Good Polish stuff.
Yeah.
So what I loved about PeerCon is I didn't see like I like this and this is what I do. I just saw everyone really celebrating and the LARP culture is incredible. Like I've never seen that before, the way people like deep dive into the LARPing. So I just found it was so open and fun and like a mad festival. And it was also really funny that there was like a Red Bull DJ soundstage with, I don't know, like 2,000 watts of doof, doof, doof. And Penny actually ran a game of
Hmm.
Cthulhu in a tent next to a doof. Like, and so it's going boom, boom, boom outside the tent. And Penny said, all right, this is a challenge. I'm going to see if I can freak people out and make them forget they're at a Red Bull rave. Because if everyone's drinking free Red Bull, like the polls are going
Right.
off, right? And it worked. She actually managed to sucker them into a Call of Cthulhu story and freak them out, even though the tent was shaking.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
It is.
But yeah, I love PeerCon. People
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. So, like, yeah, exactly. Do you remember our first meeting? Like, when did that happen? Like, when did you meet? Which convention? At which convention did we meet for the first time?
Well,
Like,
I
it's
I
not
found
me
out.
personally, but Q Workshop
Yeah,
campaign
yeah.
points.
I don't know. I guess I probably saw Q Workshop dice in a
Hmm.
store, and so I became aware of these beautiful dice
Because you have
that had these
quite a
incredible.
collection, right? Of our
I have
dice.
one or two. So
Right.
I first set I bought probably the Dwarven set, and then I
Mm.
looked you up, and there was this website, and the shipping was
Website.
really cheap
Ooh.
because dice are light. Yeah, qworkshop.com.
Yeah,
After you
guys,
finish shopping at
go to our
campuscoins.com.
website. Oh,
Uh,
and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and all the social media.
like and
Sorry, I forgot about it. I should have
having
said
too
that
much fun.
I should have said that in the beginning, not now. But
It's after
maybe,
midnight for you. I've
yeah,
had a coffee. It's just getting off the rails.
yeah.
Um,
So,
so I found, oh my God, there's this website and I can order the exact D20 I want because I want an extra D8. And so I and they turned up beautifully and shipped perfectly. And then I was at Gen Con because Andre took me to Gen Con, which was
mm,
very kind in 2012. Hadn't been to Gen Con for 20 years. And I'm walking along and I see, oh, there's Q Workshop. They come to Gen Con. And so
hmm.
I met Magda. And Magda is super nice and lovely and just like the nicest person on the planet. And so kind of friendly, and I could pick every dice. So every Gen Con, I would just go
Right.
always to find Q Workshop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I was walking along at PAX Australia, walking along, and I hear a Polish accent, and I turn around and say, "Oh my God, you guys are here!
And you,
Like, what are you
yeah,
doing in Australia? Amazing!"
yeah.
And I said, "Is anybody showing you around?" And Magda said, "No," and Newty was there. No, I said, "Oh my God, what are you doing on Monday? Let's go see some wombats."
Mm.
So I kidnapped all of Q Workshop staff, and we went and saw some wombats, and I called it wombat diplomacy. and we became huge friends because of marsupials, which are cool.
Yes, we actually did a lot of things
Yeah,
together, right?
yeah.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
only
yeah,
coins,
quite.
but like working together on the booth, or like
Yeah, well, I love to kind of help at the booth because, you're in Australia, go get
right,
some lunch, I'll
right,
sell some dice.
right,
And
exactly.
that was really fun to me because I then appreciated even more the incredible of what you do.
Mm,
Because when I stand behind your booth and I see just people's eyes light up when they see the designs, and I love that moment where somebody's just been introduced to D&D and they're like, this is my first die set.
mm,
I'm going to choose my first set. And that's a really sweet moment. It's a real honor to be part of that,
mm-hmm.
okay, it's going to be your first set. It's really cool.
Will you be
And
at
then
Gen Con this year?
we will not because it's still just a little bit too early for us to commit to international travel
Right,
with things.
right.
But
We will.
we look forward to returning. You will indeed. We'll be doing PAX Australia,
Uh,
and we'll be doing in 2023.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Look,
think so.
it seems like with the state of the vaccines that
Right.
things
Mm-hmm.
are getting a little better. But when we had to commit in January, it was just a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah, yeah. Of
scary.
course, we have
So
to do it in
we wish
advance.
everybody. I love that they're keeping masks on at Gen Con and that people are vaccinated. So wash those hands, stay safe, have a fantastic convention.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully we will. And we'll be at Origins next week and at Gen Con and then back Seattle and a lot. Just, check our
We
social
have
media.
we have really missed it. We have really
Yeah,
missed
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's really
I
nice to
did
hang out
definitely.
and you get that real buzz, and that's when you get the ideas for the new scenarios and
Right,
the new dice and the new
right,
coins.
right.
It's really cool. I will be very sad at Gen Con time. I'll be really grumpy.
Oh,
Oh, I should have gone. This is stupid. But I'll check it all
you'll
out
be
online.
good. Next year, it will happen next
Yay!
year again. So yeah, no,
Well, PAX Australia.
yeah, exactly. Uh, what's like just going back to your dice collection? What's your favorite one? Q Workshop's favorite one.
Well, you made a dice for us. And there it is. This is a dice designed by my friend Linda. Linda Mills. She does our character art, our three Dungeoneers. And she also did this kind of D20 design, which is far and away our most popular coin. People use it for
Mm,
inspiration. So the fact that my friend Linda, she plays in my games. We worked in a video game studio. She's a great artist. I love the fact that this dice, she designed it, you make it. So that's very
mm.
special. In fact, this is our first collaboration
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
I just said to Andre, we do this coin based on a dice. Why don't we reverse engineer it and make the actual bloody dice? So anyway, I love all the dice. I love the Dwarven set because I think that's the set I fell in love with
Mm.
first, and I love the kind of really kind of bold numbers, and it really feels like you're
Like a
hitting someone with an
dwarven
axe.
die.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're really
like
cool.
hitting with an
The
axe. Right. Exactly.
my go-to dice at the moment, I'll get the pronunciation wrong, is Baniak, the
Banyak.
Polish
Yeah.
streamer.
Like with the Call of
Baniak.
Cthulhu elements into
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Mm?
And he's also a wonderful guy. I met him at CarcosaCon, so he's a delight.
Mm.
And I love his designs. A little bit larger. I love the fact that the 20 on the D20 is a red,
Right.
so it pops,
Right
and
away.
it's
Yeah.
really kind of clean, unbelievably beautiful. I ended up getting, I think, 3 sets of those. So
All right.
if I had to use one die for the rest of my life, I'd probably use his. You've just come up with Seth Skorkowski's dice, which I don't have yet, but I look forward to seeing those.
These are awesome.
And
Yeah.
I knew Seth. We actually made a medallion for him before I knew about the Call of
Oh,
Cthulhu thing
okay.
for his Sea of Quills book. So I love those. But I like to theme the Q Workshop dice for the game I'm running. So I use the Call of Cthulhu set, Sulu, and I really like Beowulf, which is a D&D version for one player and one game master by Handiwork Games, and it's based on Anglo-Saxon myths and stories. Check out Beowulf: Age of Heroes. So I love using the Viking dice when I'm running Beowulf because they have that kind of Anglo-Saxon Viking feel. But when I have the boss fight, because you only fight one monster in Beowulf, I use the dice macabre because they're covered in skulls.
Because you'll probably
And
die.
it's
It's like
yeah, and it's like, oh, if I get the dice macabre out, I'm not your friend anymore. Like, look at these skulls. So
right,
yeah,
right.
I
Does
love the fact you can
is it
change
something
stuff.
that helps with creating an atmosphere during the session? Is it like does it help in general? Like
I
or
I
is it not like the dice or accessories, cups or whatever you have there candles, or do you use it? Is it something that really matters, or not so much?
I
I
think,
mean, like,
yeah.
does it
I
increase the experience? I would think so, but I'd rather
I
ask you. I
really
mean,
I
you know.
really think it does, and it's also dice are beautiful,
Mm.
and how long have we had dice? Is it? I used to know this. It's I don't know, maybe,
Few
well,
thousand
yeah,
years,
yeah,
I
yeah. I
guess.
should know. I meant that. So I'll have to
I
go
know
look that
that
up.
they're, they found some deep under the ground,
Mm, yeah.
and it was
Oh well, yeah. The Royal Game of Ur. So yes, we
Babylon or something. I
yeah,
don't
yeah. No,
remember.
you're
Yeah.
quite right. The Royal Game of Ur and the sort of Sumerian kind of dice. So we've had dice for
Yes.
thousands of years. You pick them up, you roll the bones. It's will I hit? And I love the act of
Mm.
throwing the dice, and that's why digital dice are wrong, and you all know it. You don't click a button.
No,
You
guys, we are
you
selling
you.
digital dice, so they're cool. They're
Well,
really awesome.
okay, you do
But
you, but I
but
I need to swing my sword. I need to throw the d20.
yeah,
So if I choose dice that match the theme of the story I'm telling, I get to enjoy more beautiful artwork, and it makes me happy. And I know that players love
mm,
to have a palette, like they're playing. I see great palettes for the Icewind D&D campaign. When I
mm,
ran, there's a great D&D module called the Sea King's Malice. It's from Frog God Games. It's by Alex Kammer, who runs a great
mhm,
convention called Gamehole, and that's an underwater adventure. So I used your classic dice, but in the kind of blues and aquas, and it felt like this
right.
underwater feel. So yeah, I think it is really cool to theme your dice to your game, and that is just an excuse to buy more dice. What's the point of buying dice if you're not rolling
Yeah,
them?
yeah.
Seriously.
We have this phrase that all dice tell a story. I think that it makes sense. Like it's true basically, because they're always
And
related somehow to the stories they're
and I think it
creating.
I think it really is. If I've got weird shaped, like weird looking Call of Cthulhu dice,
Hmm.
and or like the Dwarven dice or the
Hmm.
Viking dice, it really does kind of pull me in. So yeah, I completely agree.
Right.
It's part of the story.
Right. Just a question about those digital dice. I mean, related to those digital dice that apparently you don't like. Uh, does it mean that you don't play online? Like, how did you play during the whole,
Yeah.
you know,
First, first of all, I
situation?
mean, don't get me wrong. I understand with virtual tabletops, digital dice are really useful
Hmm.
because they take an element of bookkeeping and they're very fair. And when they bounce around with physics, that is super cool.
Hmm.
And with my group, we play on Zoom and we use Astral, and everybody else uses digital dice and love them.
Hmm.
They
Yeah,
love
yeah.
them and they
Actually, I
go,
was I was very
hey!
surprised because I
Yeah.
didn't know they exist basically before we started to make them, and I was surprised how good they look. Actually, they look like real dice, and they roll like
Yeah.
real dice. And
When you've got the physics, it is
yes,
pretty cool.
yes,
But
exactly.
when we had I started playing online because we had to.
Yeah.
We were all in lockdown, and I really wanted to run games almost as a mental health outreach for us all because we were stuck in our houses, worried about dying,
Yeah.
and people we love dying. I mean, let's not sugarcoat this. It was an awful time, and it still is, and people are still dying. Whew, lighten the mood, Mark. So I wanted us to get away for two
Right.
hours and not worry about case numbers, and by playing D&D. So it was very important to me that we kept playing. And it really worked. When I said, "Hey, does anyone want to play some D&D?" Everyone was like, "Yes, yes. When do we start? Oh my God, yes, please, yes." So my personal style was just to use Zoom, and it could be Skype. Like our table is just
Hmm.
really long. Like we're sitting at a table, it's just we're sitting at our computers. So I would roll physical dice like I always do, and I would read the numbers. And I
Hmm.
actually set up a camera for miniatures and a map, and I would just move them
Right.
around for
Right.
everybody. I used the colored rings from Zombies so people could see which what character it
Hmm.
was.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
not as clear as a beautiful digital tabletop.
Yeah.
And Astral is really good. I think Owlbear Rodeo, it's a free map
Hmm.
digital tool, is amazing. by a couple of Australians who invented it because they wanted to play D&D online during lockdown. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing boom, the tool. But my style was to use Zoom as a long table and cameras and just see each other's faces. Like, I want to see your face and talk to you and have a laugh rather than stare at a grid and go,
Right, but do you do
click.
you do you experience like did you experience something like, because I have a lot of friends who also, of course, they didn't have any other choice, they had to play online, but they don't want to go back to normal playing. They got used to it and they are okay with that. I mean, like,
Yeah,
is there something you've observed, like something you've noticed, that people got so,
absolutely.
so,
Yeah.
they've discovered another way to play and now they don't actually need to meet each other anymore. I don't know, like
Yeah.
it's
No, I think it's everybody should play the
as
games
they
they want
want.
in the way
Yeah,
they want and don't listen to anybody on the internet, like,
exactly.
ever, tell you you're doing it wrong. Just don't listen to people on the internet. They suck.
Yeah.
I'm currently on the internet. Don't listen to me. So I remember with Andre's group, Hugh was running it. Like, and Hugh said, "Oh, well, lockdown's lifted. We can go back to playing together." And there was a moment of silence, and
Mm-hmm.
someone said, "Well, I don't have to drive." Someone else said, "I can have another glass of wine." So, it's convenient.
Yeah, yeah, it
In
is,
my
it is.
personal in my personal thing, I think the genie's out of the bottle, and I think now we can stay together even when we're apart. And I think we are
Mm-hmm.
blessed that this webcam technology was there when
When
kind
it
of
happened.
humanity needed,
Yep.
when we needed to stay. I mean, like, again, I'm old. Like, talking to someone on a video, like, that was some shit from Aliens in a movie. Oh my God, she's talking to them on a video. Like, whoa, gee, the future is
Right.
wild, and here I am in the future, without the chest bursters,
Mm-hmm.
So, but in my personal thing, no, once we could play at tables again safely and everyone's vaccinated and we stay in touch about our health, I like the human connection because I
Mm-hmm.
want to spend time. But it's been really
Mm-hmm.
cool, and I love running
Yeah,
stream
I
games as
understand
well. And
you.
I'm
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
Well, have the same. All right, it's almost an hour, I think, so we should probably, lean towards the end. Slowly, but we have to.
Yay, indeed. I have to go to work. I have to go
And
to
I have
write
to
some
go to
things.
sleep actually, because
Yeah.
it's like 1 a.m. already, but it doesn't matter. One or two final final questions or final thoughts, because I have to tell you guys, if you're watching this, that we are working with Mark together at some projects that we haven't revealed yet. So I won't say anything else, but it will be super cool and awesome. So you should probably keep an eye on our social medias and what we do in the nearest future. But the question is, what is your current project? What are you doing? What's interesting in Campaign Coins or in your other activities? Is there anything
Yeah,
you
yeah,
would
for
like
sure.
to, invite people to or tell them?
Oh, please, absolutely. We're doing so many cool things. Right now on Kickstarter, Dark Tower is being kickstarted in a new fifth edition. Dark Tower is a legendary D&D module by
Mm-hmm.
Janelle Jacques, and it's really a pivotal dungeon in the history of
Mm-hmm.
dungeons for the design and more story and more kind of non-linear kind of realism with a kind
Mm-hmm.
of Egyptian theme. And Andre, as a teenager, this was the module that just set his brain on fire.
Right.
And so when we heard, I don't know if you've seen them, but Goodman Games are doing beautiful revised editions of classic modules like Castle Amber and Keep on the Borderlands. So now they're giving Dark Tower the treatment. And so we immediately, got in touch and said, "Oh my God, this is our favorite adventure ever. Can we please make coins?" And incredibly, Janelle herself was available. She's
Right.
designed these incredible coins. So we are so thrilled. It's literally Andre reaching into the moment where he really began to love D&D and making the treasure he imagined. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
So check that out. It's on about 380,000, so that's roaring along. Otherwise, we've got a whole bunch of really cool things which we're printing just now. We're doing another Red Dragon Inn token for Who's Winning the Gambling Round. We love Red Dragon Inn by Slugfest Games. It's a hilarious card game. We are working on new concentration tokens. Our concentration tokens are for when you're concentrating on a spell to remind you you're concentrating. So if you get hit, you have to make a con save. And we're doing brand new designs by Brian Patterson